opportunity for something new, and every day is an opportunity to grow. So I'm thinking to myself, like, what do you do? What do you get ready? Our resurrection services and celebration are later in April this year. So how do you kind of build that up? Do you sit there and talk about the resurrection, and you talk about the lead up to that, and do you take like 10 weeks to do that, 8 weeks to do that, or build it up? And as I sat there and I thought about, we have been blessed. We prayed for more in 24, and God has blessed us with more. We see new life, new babies, new blood, new water baptisms, new salvations. We see new ventures, new opportunities and jobs that are getting done, new improvements around the church, and we see God doing more in 24. But how do we flourish and thrive in 25? And we spent the last several weeks talking about that. But I thought a good way to come off of that is that we need to learn how to not be content, but being generous in our lifestyle. So if I were to hand out a piece of paper to you and I say, I want you to write down your definition of what the word generous means, 90% of you, according statistically, would answer that generosity means money. Right? Honestly, how many of you would say, that's the first thing that popped in my mind? When you say generous, it pops into my mind, giving. Money, right? It comes into our minds. But we need to learn to have a better spiritual awareness so that we can be generously aware. Being aware of the people around you is an integral part of living a generous life. We're going to hit a couple scriptures today. You want to write them down. Is Mark chapter 5. And Romans chapter 12. So let's just research this again real quick. If you anybody use Google search, you just type in, hey Google, where am I at? I don't know, where are you? You can ask Google anything. If you believe it when it gives the answer, it's gonna answer you to the best of its ability. If you were to do a Google search for the weight loss pill, okay, you would get over 150 million results in under 1 second. That's how fast it is. Millions of websites, they make the promise, a better body, better you, in just 2 weeks. Simple pill. Even more stunning is the fact that we buy it. We always heard that saying growing up that if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. But it gets us every time. When I was younger and I had Saturdays available, I would kick on the TV and I would watch these fishing shows. Hal Linderman or Babe Winkleman, and I'd watch these shows and just dream about the summer to get here so I could go fishing. And there would be all these advertisements for all these fishing lures and all these baits and all these crankbaits and all these plastic worms and spinners and lines. And if you use this, you'll catch more fish than you know what to do with. And you're like, I need that. Right? And they say half the fishing lures are meant to catch fishermen and not the fish. I had every fishing lure possible. I spent my first couple months' paycheck from Sereno's on fishing lure. I'd order these things online, and you order them, you take them out, you fish them in the same place, and nothing. Like, man, on TV they were catching. Why can't I? Because it was where I was at. Fishing makes the difference. Awareness of your surroundings. When I went to certain places and started using some of these baits where there were better opportunities for fish to be aware of my bait, I was catching a lot of fish. Finally, one day that infomercial come on about the banjo minnow. And that banjo minnow was the greatest thing that ever happened since the resurrection of Jesus. People would tell you that you could just look at the banjo minnow and you'll catch fish. The fish can't stand it. And I thought, it probably doesn't work, but I'll try it out. I tried it out. I took that thing. I went out to my favorite pond that I started fishing at, and I caught so many fish, I tore those lures apart. And I thought, you know what? It's all about the location where you're at. I probably could have put bubble gum on my hook in that pond and caught fish. But it's the presentation. Last year, check this out, over $33 billion were spent on various weight loss products. And at the same time, the FDA reports that 39.6% of Americans are overweight. That's a third of us. It's crazy. I think the conclusion we can all come to is that our world is full of miracle cures that never deliver on what they promise. I'm no longer allowed to watch the infomercial commercial channels as seen on TV, right? If I go to Boscov's at the mall, I'm not allowed in that aisle that's as seen on TV. I'm not allowed there anymore because you walk in and say, they're not going to get me this time, and you walk out with a bag full of stuff. Say, well, just in case. Most of us are skeptical when something seems too good to be true. So with this in mind, I want to offer you something that will radically improve your life in every way. This will make you healthier, it will make you happier, and it will make you more fulfilled and will give you a legacy lasting far beyond your lifetime. I guarantee it. Kind of sounds like an infomercial, doesn't it? Now, before you tune me out, consider this. The reason that so many people go for the miracle weight loss pill, even though some of us say that doesn't work, is because deep down we all want the best version of life possible. We want to feel good, we want to be good, we want to look good, we want to do good, right? It's our human nature. We were created by God with a desire to be fulfilled. We were created to be happy. We were created to live for something more than just our own stories. We're on a search for significance, and we're on a search for fulfillment. And today I want to give you a pathway towards some of these things. And the good news is it's not a pill, and I don't need your credit card number to get it. I'm talking about the word generosity. The generous life. I want to show you from Scripture what the purpose is, why the Bible instructs us, why the Bible shows us. So, can I just take a moment then and ease the tension, maybe, if you're feeling it, and let you know what generosity is not. Okay? Generosity is not just your money. You might be sitting here thinking, oh great, another sermon series about tithing and money, right? Generosity has to do with so much more than just your money. Is money a part of it? Absolutely. But a generous life is about being generous in a variety of ways. Think about the different ways that we can be generous. We can be generous with our thoughts. Never thought of that, did you? Are we generous in the way that we think about people around us? Have you ever seen somebody in a store and your first thought in your mind is, what is wrong with that person? What are they wearing? What are they thinking? What are they doing? The Bible talks about loving our neighbor as ourselves. But how often do we give the people around us the benefit of the doubt? I love to people watch. I get a great opportunity to people watch every week. And sometimes you see people and you think, oh, dear Lord, there's no hope, is there? We got to consider, though, the way that we think about ourselves before we can think about others the way that God thinks about them. We got to view ourselves through God's eyes. And that often means sometimes that we're not all that in a bag of chips. Negative self-talk is always a reflection of an incorrect view of God. Do you pay attention to your self-talk? Do you think about what you think about? We can be generous with our words. The book of Proverbs says that careless words stab like a sword, but the words of the wise bring healing. We have great opportunity to do this as a church and as believers today. In a day of division, the enemy is so division so much and has used some tools, social media sites, etc., to use these things that were meant to bring us together to tear us apart. But we have the opportunity as Christians to rise above that and bring words that bring healing. Do you use your words to bring healing to the people around you? Do you build people up? How about we could be generous with our money? Every time we give financially, you know what it does is it softens our hearts and we become more like Christ. The giving of our finances takes the focus away from me and it puts it on others. When you know that you're blessing something, you're blessing a cause, you're blessing a person, you're blessing a ministry. We can be generous with our influence. Most of us would not be where we are today if someone hadn't made the choice to be generous with their influence on us. Think about that. Who was the person that had influence on you in your life? We can be generous with our time. Sometimes the best thing we can do for another person is just take time to stop and help. Are we using our time in a generous way? We can be generous with our attention. We live in a world that's operating with an attention deficit. This is a tough one. Because we walk out of the house, we're on a mission. You're trying to remember what it is I'm supposed to do today. I'm on a mission if I'm going to work. I'm on a mission if I'm going to the office. I'm on a mission if I'm going to the store. I'm on a mission. I got to keep it in my mind. I got to keep it on my reminder. I got to have it on my cell phone. I got to have notes on my car or whatever so I can remember this mission. How about, are we on our phone when someone else is trying to talk to us? We've all felt the power of someone who is fully present. Are we fully present in conversation with others? And we can also be generous with our belongings. We all have stuff that we can use to bless others, and we can do it in creative ways. We have this opportunity, and it always comes around in the fall, that we help with the Youngstown with the Blue Coats. Simple things like socks and coats and hats. Things that we probably have so many sitting around the house that some of them are still in the bags because we just don't need them. We don't have use for them. But they could be a massive, generous blessing to somebody that has nothing. So you see the point here? Generosity is about far more than just finances. It's about taking your entire life. It's taking your everything that you are, and it's taking everything that you own, and it's using it to bless the people around you. And since it's not about money, we can also make this statement. Generosity is for everyone. Everybody can be generous. You don't have to be rich to be a giver. You don't have to be a millionaire to be generous. In fact, I want to give you a spoiler right now for what I'm going to talk about here. The requirements for generosity are as follows. It's very complicated. But I found a complex theorem here I'm going to give you. Are you ready? Write it down. Number 1, identify an opportunity. Number 2, take action. Every day we wake, our prayer should be to God, show me and give me an opportunity to be generous with what you've blessed me with. And then go take action. That's it. It's that simple. Your life can be completely transformed by the power of generosity. There's no greater feeling or giving or gift in the world than when you have blessed somebody and helped make a difference in their life. What's even more fun is when they don't expect it or even know who did it. Look, I'm not talking about being generous to get a political vote. I'm not talking about being generous where we're out there beating our chests and saying, look what I'm giving. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being generous because you want to be more like Christ, and I'm going to show you how he was generous also here. But being generous because that's what he's asked us to do. You will receive no greater blessing in your life than knowing that you made a difference. Here's the bonus. If you do this, you'll have a tremendous impact on the world around you. Our world needs generous people. Our world needs generous Christians. True Christians. Disciples of Christ. Bible reading followers of the gospel. That's what we need. We don't need more editorial opinion editors to the Christian faith. We need born-again, blood-bought, spirit-filled Christians being generous with their faith. We have an awareness, we have action, and we have an impact. So I'm going to be going over these the next couple weeks here just to show us what we can do. But today, I want to talk about being generous in our life, to be generously aware of what's going on. Stop and think about how many things each of us experience on a daily basis. Think about that for a minute. There's sights, there's sounds, there's tastes, there's smells, there's touches, all of this stuff that's around us. In fact, if we were to try to put a number on how often we use our senses, it would be impossible to do it. Do you know that your senses are kicked in overdrive? They're working and moving even when you're asleep. Science and research tell us that our senses never stop working. We are literally sensing things all of the time. We live in a perpetual state of sensory overload all the time. Everything's vying for your attention, grabbing for your attention. Look here, buy here, sell there. And because of this, our brains are working overtime to categorize what our senses experience. You know, there's such a sensory overload that even if people put billboards out on the road, I could ask you, what's the last billboard you read on the way to church? You'd be like, I don't remember. Well, you know they're there, right? But we don't remember what they are because we're overloaded. Signs, everywhere signs. Right? We see so many of them that all of a sudden it's like, boom, overload. Brain says, can't handle it. Full. Shut it down. This is why you can brush your teeth in the morning and not even give it a second thought. It becomes a habit. It's possible for us to experience hundreds of millions of things every day and only be aware of a few of them. From the moment you got up this morning to the moment that you're here right now, you probably can't remember every single thing you said or did. Because there's so much sensory going on. Not convinced? Try this. Who are the last 10 people you saw today? Don't look around the room. I'm just talking about before noon. Try that tonight around 9 p.m. If you're anything like me, these things are quite hard to remember. So this point is this. We are experiencing things every day without actually being aware of those things. Our brain efforts to categorize our experiences and actually makes it harder for you and it makes it harder for myself to be fully present and fully aware. You ever talk to somebody and you're looking in their face, you're looking in their eyes, you're having a conversation, and then they're talking back to you and you're hearing them talk back to you and you're like, oh wait, they're talking. What did they say? I've been in the middle of conversations with people, especially my wife, and I'm having a conversation and I'll stop for a minute and think about something and then I come back and I'm like, oh, what was I talking about? I even forgot what I was talking about. But when you look at Scripture, we see Jesus as a person who never, ever missed a moment. Have you ever noticed this? What an uncanny ability that Jesus had to maximize opportunities for an impact. I want to show you one of these moments in Mark chapter 5, starting with verse 21. Mark chapter 5, verse 21, it says, when Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, my little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live. So Jesus went with him. Now, a little bit of context for the story. This comes right after Jesus healed a man that was possessed by demons. Gets in his boat, heads back across. It's a very intense encounter in the life of Jesus. He's taking a boat across the other side of the lake. A large crowd gathers him. Jesus has barely had time to even get out of the boat, and he's met with a very prominent person, an official, influential religious leader comes to him, falls down at his feet. It's one of those moments that no one could miss because it's right there in your face. It's right in front of you. Jesus is tired. He just had this demon casting service going on. He pushes out in the boat and comes back across the lake with his disciples. The ladies, I think, probably experience this more than the guys, but you know, you're busy doing stuff and you come back from the store or come back from work or wherever you're at, you come in the house and boom, kids are on you right away. Or your husband's right, I got to talk to you real quick. And it's like your brain's like, can I just have 5 minutes? 5 minutes. This is how I picture Jesus. His daughter was sick. In fact, she's near death. Jairus has one request, come to my house, touch my daughter and heal. And Jesus basically responds exactly how you would expect him. He drops what he's doing and he immediately goes. This is where the story gets interesting, because it says now a large crowd is following Jesus. They're pressed in around him, right? And a woman who has been their subject of bleeding for 12 years, she had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors, had spent everything that she had to try to be made whole and better. But she was only getting worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak because she thought, if I could just touch his cloak, I will be healed. Immediately it said her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. So Jesus, he's going to a very obvious opportunity to minister. He's confronted by a much more subtle situation. The Bible tells us the woman in the crowd was bleeding for 12 years. 12 years. She went to the doctors, was promised solutions, gave everything that she had, nothing worked. Jesus walked by in the crowd, and this woman makes a very bold, a very desperate decision. And she reaches out and she touches the bottom edge of his clothing. And as soon as she does that, she's miraculously healed. Scriptures tell us. It's important that we don't miss the context of the story. Jesus is headed towards an urgent situation. He's going to take care of a near-death experience that's about to happen for a child. It's obvious opportunity. It involves important and influential people. And right in the middle of this opportunity, he encounters another opportunity so small, it's so subtle, that none of us in this room would have blamed him if he just kept going. But this is how Jesus responds. That once he realized that power had gone out of him. Virtue. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched me?" Disciples were like, "What are you, tripping? Who didn't touch you?" Everybody's touching you. You see the people crowding, and yet you can ask, "Who touched me?" But Jesus kept looking around to see who done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, trembling with fear, and told the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." So I want you to look at that verse 30 for a moment. I believe this is one of the most profound phrases in the Scriptures, and it relates to a generous lifestyle. The Bible says that Jesus turned in the crowd and asked, "Who touched me?" He could have kept going. He's on a mission, going to see a high-ranking official. But what he did, as he's demonstrating here, is the remarkable awareness of his surroundings. And in the middle of that urgent moment, in the middle of that large crowd, Jesus doesn't miss an opportunity to bless somebody. And the disciples, they're blown away. They're shocked by his response. They can't believe that in a crowd of people, everyone bumping up against him, that he would somehow have the awareness of one single thing going out of him. I think the disciples are asking the same question that I find myself asking as I read this story every now and then. How in the world did Jesus do this? How was he so aware of what was happening around him that he didn't miss a moment to be generous with this woman? We ever find ourselves being so busy going somewhere, doing something on a mission, that we miss an assignment that was given to us? You ever catch yourself at the end of the day or the end of an opportunity thinking, "I missed an opportunity there. I missed an opportunity there," because I was so dead set on what I had to do that I forgot to be obedient to what God was leading me to do? It's an important question for us. Because we're followers of Christ. He's our blueprint. He's our example for how to live here in this world. Look, there's a lot of people looking for questions and looking for answers. Asking a lot of questions, looking for answers. I think if we're just situationally aware of what's going on around us, we can help with a lot of confusion, a lot of hopelessness, by being like Christ and just recognizing the situation around you and being generous with what he's giving you. I'm going to give you an answer real quick. Awareness activates generosity. Awareness activates generosity. If we're not aware of needs around us, then we're never going to have the opportunity to be generous with them. Because we walk through life like this. Awareness activates generosity. The first step to a generous life is to become more aware of what's happening around us. People who are successfully living generous lives seem to have their antenna up at all the time. Now, if you're under the age of 30 around here, you might not know what the word antenna means. Right? Everything's digital now. Remember the antennas? We had the antenna box sitting on top of the TV. We were the remote control growing up. Dad would say, "Go put NBC or Channel 3 or Channel 7 or whatever, or Channel 10. And that was it. You had 3 of them, and you'd go push the thing and it'd go, tsk, 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 and that was it. 3 channels. And if it was snowing hard, forget about it. If it was a good night, you might get KDKA. I don't know. But you had that antenna up there, and it was on a motor, and it would go, it would change. You drive in your car, you had an antenna. That antenna gets broke off, you're not getting a radio, man. You're done. Nowadays, it's all in your windshield or digital. It's in your glove box or whatever inside that dashboard, and we don't even know anymore. But we have to learn to have that antenna up. That antenna helps us catch the signal. The signal that's being transmitted to the station that we want. We need our antennas, as Christians, need to be up. They need to be constantly adjusting to find where we're at. Because sometimes we go off a different path. But if we have that antenna right, we can always find it. Always find that signal. I told you stories when I went to school in Springfield, Missouri, and it's a scientific phenomenon. They explain about it because of the low cloud cover and the way that radio signals and higher frequencies will bounce in lower altitude and they'll actually go across. But I have sat in my parking lot at Central Bible College in the early 90s, and I would turn on my radio and I could listen to some of the Pittsburgh Penguin hockey games on KDKA. Honestly. Not all the time. But some of the time, I'd go out and just check. If it was a big game, like, oh my gosh, I'm getting the game. I'd sit out there and do my homework or reading in the car with the radio playing and hopefully not killing the battery. You see, the disciples in this story were actually correct. Everyone was touching Jesus in the same way. We are intersecting with people all the time. But unless you and I can develop the ability to be aware, then we will never be able to be generous. You look at people around you and you say, oh, there's somebody they need help. Or they're telling you they need someone to talk to, or they may need that. We have that opportunity to share with them. So I want to give you one new habit to help you increase your awareness. I believe if we add this one thing and we put this into our daily routine, it will give us the awareness for you and I to have a generous life. Every morning, ask God to make you more generous. God, make me more generous. Be careful. Be careful how you pray. So this little daily prayer will absolutely change your life. Prayer is essential if we're going to become aware of the opportunities around us, and it makes sense if you think about it. If we're going to be generous to others because of God's love for us, shouldn't we start the day by inviting Him into our efforts? Paul says in the book of Romans chapter 12, verse 2, don't copy the behavior and customs of the world, but let God transform you in a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good, pleasing, and perfect. Paul's inviting us to let God transform us by the way we think. I'm no good. I'm not good enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not big enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. We beat ourselves up instead of saying, God, what have you given me to do today? Show me. Awareness always begins with a shift in your perspective. We need God to give us new perspective because human nature is to walk through life, and sometimes we go through life, we're in that selfie mode. You ever see people taking selfies when you're out everywhere? And they're walking, they're going to fall in a pond because they're so busy taking selfies. Selfie time, selfie time, selfie time. It's all about me. Self, 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 self. We're missing the awareness all around us. It's our default setting. It's a way that we've kind of learned this over the years. We need to start developing an awareness by spending time with God, who created our hearts to be generous in the first place. Imagine if we started every day with a prayer like this. It said, God, I want to experience the joy that comes from being generous. I believe that. Do you believe that? That generous people are truly joyful people. I ask that today an opportunity to be generous will come my way, that I will recognize it when it does, and that I will have the courage to jump in and give. I promise you this. If you make a commitment to pray in the morning, you will be absolutely amazed at the opportunities and at the frequency of things popping up. Here's a little secret. Those opportunities were there all the time. We're just more generously aware now because our antenna is up. Praying and asking God for opportunities is a way to open your heart and to change your perspective. It's not a coincidence. If you look through a few chapters earlier, before Jesus' encounter with the bleeding woman, he got up early and spent time alone in prayer Prayer aligns our heart with God's heart. Doesn't make you perfect, but it aligns your heart. It changes our perspective so we can live with a Holy Spirit-driven awareness every day. So I want you to think about this for a moment. What does it actually look like? I have a true story. I have a video I want to show you here, and it's a true story, and we're going to come to a conclusion on the end of this service here with that. But I want you to watch this video for the next couple minutes.
Eating chicken at KFC, and this guy comes just shuffling in with a walker. His beard was growing out, and his hair was down to his shoulders, and it was greasy and matted. He's got on this old white t-shirt that is just soiled from stem to stern. I thought, well, I can at least give him something to eat. We went and grabbed him some chicken, and I found out he was living on a couch in a little patch of woods there. So he was back there laying on the couch, and he told me that he was a homeless vet. I could not believe that a human being would be living like he was, especially having served the country. He was sick, he was mentally disabled, smelled to high heaven. It would be inhuman to leave a man living out like that if there was any hope. So I took him into a hotel, but he's got issues with his kidneys and his feet. And so they finally said, look, take him out. We just started taking care of him from then on. Ready? What happens to a man that deteriorates to the position that he's in? From what I've been able to piece together, he was adopted by an elderly couple, so they died early in his life. He joined the military, got married somewhere along in that line. His wife said, come home and take care of the family or she was going to leave him. He went home to take care of his wife. Well, she left him anyway and took the kid.
I just wish God would make all this stop.
It's been a challenge, just a slog to get those benefits. In the middle of this thing, I don't know when it'll end. I don't know if it will end. But when I committed to help him, I basically told God I'd see it through.
Mark was in hell till Eddie Green came into his life and changed all that. Mark was very sick. With post-traumatic stress syndrome, the first thing they start thinking about is what they did in that war. How many people they done killed.
And sometimes I think I've made so many mistakes. When I'm laying in bed, I ask God to make sure I don't wake up.
I don't want to see him die. I'm hoping that Mark can get out of the prison that he's in his own mind and come back to life.
For a while I hated God more than anything on this planet. That went away because I figured there's all kinds of people on this planet that are kind of like me, he's helping them. Eddie is someone that I would do anything for if I could.
Go to the bathroom and then call me when you get ready to brush your teeth, all right?
He's done so much for me.
If you consider that you're a gift of God to the other people in the world, there really is something spiritual that takes place when we give our life. It's just like a crystallization of the reality of what God feels for mankind.
Just listen to Mark. Listen to him cry out, man. He became my brother. This is the way I look at other people. They are human beings. They are brothers and sisters no matter what. Somebody needs to reach out, give the compassion, and don't think loving somebody is weak. It is powerful. Love is the most powerful thing in the world.